My goodness, the devil is a liar. Sorry, guys. Part one. I'm hoping you watched part one first. I was doing the war room. Everything was going well. Then it's technical difficulties. Got kicked out of my programs. You know, it's been a mess. But welcome to part two, war room 73. We're just about to start breaking down AUD USD. If you don't mind, I'm just going to dive back in once again. If you're confused, I have done part one, so just look at the the video just before this on the channel. It's got the introduction, it's got the market sentiment, it's got the market analysis, it's got dollar, DXY, pound USD, USD Swiss Franc trade calls, and now we're just continuing, with part two of War Room 73, like we were meant to, right? So I hope no one is confused. I'm sorry about that. It is my first day back doing a War Room after almost a month, so it's expected. I'll press the wrong button in excitement, right? So AUD USD, let's get cracking. Let's get cracking. Act like nothing ever happened, right? So I don't want to be lazy. I really don't. So I really want to take this whole situation in and look at these things from a higher time frame first, because that's how you should be trading, right? So if we stick to old levels and we just only look at the daily time frame, you rob yourself of practicing your eyes. Number two, you rob yourself of taking in your information, right? Because markets move in zigzags, so you have to check this out all the time, right? But AUD USD right at the top, there's our perfect head and shoulders. You'll see it more, excuse me, on the daily time frame. But it's a very old head and shoulders from last year, February 2021. It's highlighted because that is the first time I broke down the long-term trend of AUD USD that we were looking at right now, right? Markets came back into the supply right there on the 16th of June, that FOMC meeting in 2021, and price has been falling non-stop ever since, right? So there we go. So we've got a clearing of a zone here. This green zone highlights potentially what could have been a weekly demand, which is no more. The fact that there is no more weekly demand means AUDUSD, despite this green candle on the monthly time frame, must come down, right? Must come down. I repeat, must come down, which means if we to adjust our long-term targets, then we're looking at price coming all the way down to this very ugly, disgusting, area of value. And I say it's ugly because of how big the wick is and how long this wick joins into older areas. So I'm just going to move to a Kinihashi candlesticks. Just for clarity, they give us clarity when we need, right? So for a reasonable target for now, I'm going to draw it like this, but trust me, the demand is longer and bigger. But as a trader, I must have a clearer picture, a clearer way to navigate, what's going on here, right? But you can see the story is the same. We're looking for medium to long term. We're looking to sell, right? Right now, sure, the dollar is falling. AUD will have a green month. We understand that, but long term, the direction is to come back down. In fact, this green month hopefully will get us a little bit higher, even though it looks like we're already bumped into exhaustion here. But I was hoping it would go a little bit higher so we can get good supplies up there. But let's see if we can find anything here, right? So let's quickly investigate. There's that weekly demand that we're talking about. We know it's broken. Once the demand is broken, we don't trust it, right? We don't assume any type of buying is going to continue. On the weekly time frame, folks, we have what seems to be a perfectly staged weekly supply right there. All right, you can see there are other supplies. All these yellow zones speak to other supplies, but those supplies are from a different time frame, the daily time frame. But if I was to look for the first supply with the most confluency, in line with our thesis of price is going to go down, the dollar is going to get back strong again, and these assets will fall, then I'm looking at this, specifically me, right? I will look into these daily supplies that don't have confluence with the weekly time frame when this one fails. Right? So we have to always think about the immediate play, right? So on the daily time frame, right, I'm looking at this weekly supply here. I know there's some daily things up there, and these are very important. Remember, the gap between these assets is not that much, and the gap is not that big. Price can be cruel and wick you out of this zone just to wick in this zone, right? So less than 100 pips, we are aware that markets can be very cruel, right? So on a trade like this, there's nothing you can do. You can do, there are a couple of things, but you can't there is no sure way of avoiding a loss. You can take the high probability setup, which would be the higher supply. You can take the risk, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take both cells here, take a cell there, and take a cell there, right? Because this cell could go very well, but only the stop loss hunt could be the one to, you know, issue out a trigger on this up level. And that's just the reality of the zone. I'm going to go Akinihashi one more time on the daily time frame to get clarity. Right, now if I look to the left here, it looks like there was a supply previously, but if I look carefully, this supply to the left has been broken and an original turn took place here. Now we could draw Fibonacci's and confirm fun things. If you watch the video on, you know, scenario analysis, especially part 2, you'll see how I like to use my break of market structures to confirm flip zones, right? To confirm supplies and demands that are going to hold, right? On the daily time frame as well, I'm just pointing out interesting patterns, right? So for one who can make the argument that AUDUSD is inside as a daily supply zone right now, I have no interest in this one. This is not the one I saw. This is not the one with the confluence with the weekly time frame. It could work, it could not work. It's just really not my cup of tea, right? The supply that I like is the one above, this one here, right? This one linked, right, to this bearish engulfing time frame here on the weekly time frame, right? It's just that now I'm using a Kinihashi candlestick, so it does draw out the zones a little bit more, right? So this for me is a cowboy area, but I'm not interested in it, right? It could work, right? Price could come down there. We'll see. This is a big week for the dollar, a big week for all assets, a big week for the markets, right? But my hope would be to start only risking money over here, and then to also then risk money over there. So I would personally have 2 sell orders, only because the likelihood of this being a liquidity hunting area right above this area is quite high, because we do have a fresh untapped supply just above. Yes, it's got no confluence with the weekly time frame, but it does still exist, right? So it's something that you need to accept. If you don't have a lot of money, then maybe this is not the pair for you to trade, right? Or maybe just wait at the highest supply, right? Just be very gracious with your area of competition, because if markets do wick this area off, they won't be looking for a deep penetration above, right? So you just be looking at something like that and it happens. Or we could get something like that and it happens. And that's why, for me, I'll be interested in both these zones and relatively reading dollar strength. All right, so that's AUD USD done and dusted. Next, it's been like 30 minutes trying to figure out, do I redo the video? Do I not do the video when I had the technical failure? So we are a bit behind time. I'm hoping to finish part 2 by the time you guys are still watching part 1, so that it just kind of like synchronizely reads together. All right, so if that makes sense, you'll see with the end screen part 1 that it's forcing you to look into part 2 here. Right, so Swiss Franc JPY, my point is I'm not going to be wasting too much time. I'm going to be on the move here. Right, let's look at the governing time frame, revert back to, oh, beautiful, revert back to normal candlesticks. Right, so we had a very good run here, but I mean, this is not new information. Those of you who've been with the channel for a very long time, I told you that anything in front of JPY is bullish, right? JPY is looking at, you know, monetary policy, not tightening, but rather easing, right? So they're maintaining a weak Swiss franc, and therefore we've got what we call monetary policy divergence. One of the best trades I'm in right now is NZDJPY, right? I don't think we're going to have a look at that today, but if you followed our war rooms on NZDJPY, it's about, I think I'm on my 2nd month holding 3 buys on this thing, and I see I missed an opportunity to enter another buy, but we covered these in the war rooms, war room 60 something, NZDJPY. I can tell you when. Like, no, he didn't tell us, right? But NZDJPY in war room 70, we've got NZDJPY in war room 66. I'm just telling you the number of times I bought into this thing, and I told you I was going to buy into it. War room 63 on the 17th of April was my first buy, right? So, NZDJPY is doing amazing, and it's because at least I'm in it, right? So this has been a clean upward climb of that monetary policy divergence, where we know that JPY is weak because that's what the Reserve Bank governor has decided to do, and so we just want to maintain, a continuous upward momentum, up until we clear all these areas, keep buying up until we get to the supply. Then maybe we can start to negotiate some sell side pressure. So I'm very proud of this asset, right? So Swiss Franc JPY is showing us the same market play here, and the idea is to see if there's actually room for us to jump on this train, right? And this train is quite interesting because what markets have done now is markets have already moved a very pivotal high moment, right? Completely potentially creating what we call MTP, a new major turning point, in the event that price does actually give us a turning point, right? Markets are now in new uncharted territory, right? This is the first time markets are at this high ever in the last 2 months. So we now need to see. So first of all, we don't know how far we're going up now, right? We're just blindly following. But my assumption hasn't changed much, which is, JPY will remain weak until about October this year, and then maybe we can see if they will give us a reason to believe that their monetary policy has changed, right? That that JPY strength might soon return, right? So there's no point in spending time on the governor and this and that, because we've got a new major turning point, right? So weekly time frame potentially useful, right? But the governor won't tell you anything until a big imbalance is created for a sell. But right now, on the weekly time frame, we've got potentially what looks like a demand that price created about 2 weeks ago, and potentially might be the first fail-safe zone where price decides to go up. Right now, will that happen? I don't know. Right? Again, once you're in new territory, you have to rely on supply and demand, sure, but now you have to start to incorporate your smart money concepts, your liquidity grabs, buy-side liquidity, sell-side liquidity, your break-off structure, your change of character, right? And this is not really the space to talk about all those things, but you're gonna have to, trading this thing by the field. It's a better to use for intraday perspective, as long as you've got a very good, healthy scenario analysis done on this particular chart, and you're looking at your sessions, right? Your session by session will be a better guide. But medium to long term, my assumption is we're going up, right? How high up, one wonders, right? So this will be the first place I'll try. You can see already the first daily demand day on Friday was in trouble, right? Markets really came deep in here. It is not to say that it is impossible for price to go back up here from Monday onwards. It's just to say, for me, it seems more prudent to get a lower tag, which already is high risk, because we don't know how high. Is this the highest price will go for a while, right? Are they switching bait? Was this a supply, right? Was this a supply at the top of an all-time high? Now, how much power is coming from that supply? Will they break this area all the way down there? We don't know, right? All you know is this is trading. It comes with considerable amount of risks. So I would not take the obvious risk. This is the obvious risk for me. I would ignore this one. Markets have penetrated already deeply that area of value. It's not yet broken, but it's quite weak, right? And I'd rather try my luck and wait here, and then also try my luck to see what's going on there, right? Both of these have some type of weekly demand covering confluence, right? Except for this one. Right, so this is what I've been looking at doing, putting a pin in order here, very light one, not that excited about trading into the, into the bliss, but it's what the chart is presenting. Remember, more opportunities if you're intraday trading, selling while waiting to buy, etc., etc. But this is not the space for that. Pound JPY. Right, and I did announce on social media at some point in time that unfortunately I had to close all my buys. After this buy did extremely well and rallied back in, I didn't take any buys at this level, although my Fibonacci was encouraging me to do so. And so now I would like to kind of get back in. All right, I would like to get back in, but I think of all the war rooms we've had, it is now time for us to clean the chart, since I'm not in any of these positions anymore, right? And then investigate it again, just for the sake of that repetition, right? Repetition does not necessarily create perfection in trading, right? Because you could be repeating the wrong thing. A lot of traders don't get, a lot of traders spend years repeating the wrong practice in the markets. Once again, if you want to learn how to trade properly, check down the link down below on the course, take the course and repeat that. Like that brings progress. Right, so we've got no supply in the way on pound JPY, right? Remember, this is the area I kept telling you guys about for a very, very long time. And this area here has been far removed, right? We've got some type of liquidity on the other side that's slowing us down, right? But I think the path to riches is to go up and forward and eventually break over this white psychological line. And so I will still be looking for buys in pound JPY. I know real reason to start selling this particular market. This is despite the fact that I was actually looking forward to a gigantic sale last year in pound JPY, and my stubbornness cost me quite a bit of money. Right, so you know, markets right now are poised at a weekly supply. Right, so that's what this white line is showing us, that there's an area of competition on a weekly supply. This weekly supply doesn't really have the covering of a governing supply, but it's still quite strong, right? Weekly supplies, the euro supplies are quite strong. They are very territorial, and they can cause price to turn, cause price to consolidate for between short to medium time, right? Between days to weeks, right? So there's a whole supply up in here. Be very careful. And I don't see a lot of buy sides on the weekly time frame close by. I don't see, you know, a lot of demands. You know, someone might be looking for a demand here. I'm not that desperate, right? Yeah, there's an imbalance. It's not that clean. I'm not that desperate. I really am not desperate to get into this chart right now, right? So there's another perfect thing to trade on an intraday. But for swing setups, you know, you have to be, you know, very much paying attention to the fact that on Friday with the breaking off and close, with another breaking off and close, you know what's going on here, right? So there's pressure to the downside, just above a bigger supply, but we know that long term this thing wants to go up, right? So the question is, if the bears have it right now, you can do things like supply and demand curve. I teach that in module 2, so have a look at your curve. Do a weekly, daily curve when you have time, then get back to me. Let's have this type of conversations with the groups. I will be active in the groups. I'm coming back this week. Private students back, all right? Public Telegram group kind of back, but I really need to invest more time in my students for the second half of the year. I said this at the beginning of the year. First half, public Telegram. Second half, 365 students. So that's what we need to do. We need to move to a new platform and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, cool stuff like that. You guys doing the supply and demand curve at your own time and then bringing those questions to the group would be a very good use of our time in there. Right, so the question is, how far will this drop? And it's really got me, you know, got me a bit flustered about rushing to buy, because I really don't see a good place to stand in the weekly time frame and on the daily time frame, right? I'm looking at, okay, some type of high here, it was kind of broken and then this failed, right? So they're now, all of a sudden your structure is now creating lower highs, equal lows maybe, yeah, but so, you know, one would argue that the creation of a downtrend is starting, right? So I wouldn't want to be buying at these levels here. I don't trust them, and you know, this is a bit scammy. You know, it could work, but for the most part, guys, I think I'm gonna let this be. Right, if I am desperate to put a trade, what I will do is I'll go with the fact that here we're at one touch, but it was a very deep touch, so I'll go with a very small lot size. This is for someone with a lot of capital and wants to be in the trade, just in case the trade works out. I'd go with a small lot size there, but remember, our fresh touches, we prefer them to kiss the area of value the first time and then be this deep during a retest. And this one was very deep during the retest, so you know, it would not be surprising. I would not even be surprised. Small lot size there by that buy two area. I'd have a very, you know, I'd have a normal. When I say big, I'm referring back to normal, like 5%, 1% type of trade idea. But when I say small, I mean even smaller than that. So I'll have a normal lot, you know, lot size lodged somewhere down here below. And that's me saying, look, man, you know, pound is quite weak right now. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while. So maybe this is just part of, you know, the temporary plan. Not interested. So if price leaves me up here, I promise you no harm, no foul, because where is price going? There's nothing to buy here if you're just gonna arrive at a big supply, right? Remember, all of this pressure is being caused by area of competition, right? Markets actually haven't even penetrated the supply zone, the weekly supply zone, and then I'm pretty sure there are 1 or 2 daily supply zones inside this yellow area. Let's just double confirm. Spend a lot of time on Pound JPY, but I hope I'm coming across clear, guys. Please also like this part 2 of the video so that other people can find it, because I can only imagine the confusion there's gonna be, right? So there's only one main deep supply inside the daily, right? So it's actually quite a nice big a run up or down, just depending on which side you trade. So I would take the sell there as a short-term trade. Later on in the future, I would take that sell. Okay. If I was absolutely bored, very short-term trade. Otherwise, I'll just stick to my safe buys at the bottom. But yeah, please don't forget to like this video so that the people watch part 1 find it quickly with their algorithm setup. It shows up that there is definitely part 2. I'd really appreciate you guys helping me iron that out. Otherwise, people are going to feel robbed that they only got 4 signals in part 1. But I do think part 1 was important, right? Market understanding, structure breakdown is key, right? So within the weekly, within the daily, we've now identified the main sell point, right, which is somewhere in here. So that's a very good supply point. Once again, if you're buying in these levels, I mean, it's just you're asking for a lot. So let's say you pitch a buy somewhere down there. Let's say your stop loss is just outside those wicks, right? And then you're going to have to deal with the area of competition, which is already a very tight 1:3. And then if your buy is to make you more money, then you have to really fight through, you know, such a yellow supply, right? And this, to me, what I'm saying is that doesn't seem, you know, prudent, right? Versus, you know, a better, riskier, you know, a better take at this risk level here, right? So it's risk level because, like I said, the first buy that happened here was quite deep, and we don't like that. We don't like to see that, but it is a bullish engulfing pattern. But let's say you were to hold this back to the area of competition, that's 1:9. Now that's a good risk without even engaging in that supply. And if you take out one of these earlier levels, that's a 1:6, right? So for me, the risk matters, right? And the reward behind it matters, right? Otherwise, buy little here, buy considerable much there, and then there's another perfect buy down there, right? So there's another perfect setup for waiting. Pound JPY for me is a waiting setup. USDJPY. Well, we know that the dollar is weak according to our part 1, and so because of that, we are not really in a rush to potentially get into buys. And you know, look at this. This is just perfect analysis, my people. Like you will recall that we finally got down to a supply somewhere up there. And we mapped out all these supplies, and I'm always, I guess, humbled in many ways when markets come back to our areas of value and perfectly act in accordance with our strategy. I mean, it's a beautiful feeling, right? So longs right now are not really necessary. In fact, longs right now are not prudent at all. And the reason for that is because, number one, we all know that the dollar is weak, right? The DXY itself is currently hit a supply. That's number one, obviously. But number two, on this particular chart, USDJPY, we've arrived at what I'm really sure you will find to be a governing supply. So if it's a governing supply, it's a big deal, right? This thing has done good. And by the way, full disclosure, I missed a lot of these buys. I think I was quite honest with a lot of you guys in the war rooms. Like, I kept waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting to get in, and markets would just leave me and leave me and leave me and leave me, right? So it's been fun to watch from an analysis perspective. But you know, monetary policy divergence dictated that the yen would come up these levels, right? Strong dollar. We've had a very strong dollar for a very, very long time. Weak Japanese yen, parabolic structure, right? And so right now, there's not much to do. There's honestly not much to do. unless if you're selling and you're doing a collaborative sell with the DXY and this supply, and you're hoping to see how far that would go. But in selling USDJPY, if I could just point out a few things to you, the structure is parabolic, right? But there is a very big, healthy demand close by here. And that's really where a lot of people, some of us will be looking for a redemption, a part two, a second chance to buy into USDJPY. The only difference with this chart is, again, it's going to be another Swiss franc type of situation very soon, because this is, we don't know when next price is going to go. This is the highest markets have ever been in the history of markets, right? So when you get a situation like this, anything outside this yellow zone becomes uncharted territory, all right? And it's really something that we want to protect and look out for all at the same time. So this is absolutely important that you guys kind of like keep a very strategic lookout on your levels. Now, if we move to the weekly time frame, I'm really under pressure now, because I know at the back of my mind, part one is already playing, and I'm wondering if I'll make it in time with this part two here. Right, so if you look at the weekly time frame, right, we've got a contact on supply. I'm just gonna really, because I personally am interested in buying. I'm not convinced that the sell side for this thing is gonna last forever. Right, so the first real buy, on the weekly time frame is here, right? So if I can just remove all these things that we wrote a while back and remove these lines, and then we'll come back to all this old analysis right now and redo it, right? But this is it, guys. This is the major, buy area that's waiting for us down there, and I would take that seriously, right? It might look unrealistically, but price could come there, right? So buy one. The main buy is somewhere down there, but I'm pretty sure there are going to be multiple other demands in the process along the way. Right, so this is the one with weekly confluence, one where I say this is definitely a big one, the one that I'm going to wait for. I'm just going to write weekly confluence so that in future we know that we looked at this chart properly and we are all in agreement. Well, I'm in agreement with myself here. There's a weekly confluence here, right? But this is a tricky chart, right? Because this could, be a fib area. And now that prices started to downturn like this, is a perfect time to draw Fibonacci. Let's pull up a Fibonacci. Because you'll be surprised why there's a random order block. Yes, no confluence, sure, but just be very careful about these things, right? So fib high, fib low, right? So bullish Fibonacci all the way to the top. Anti-fib is swinging high and swinging low, right? So I've got my 50% market, my golden ratio area starts there, and this order block is deep inside my golden ratio area, just before my barcode level of 0.78. So it's a mess. It's a mess because any of these levels will be good enough. All right, any of these levels are going to be good enough to be used by smart money to continue an uptrend. You are going to know which is the best level in accordance to what the dollar is doing. Okay, that's the only way you can catch this thing. So if the DXY has not yet arrived at, say, a significant daily demand when price gets here, don't take the buy. But if the DXY has arrived at a significant strong daily demand and price is here, there's going to be correlation. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't make sense. But there's going to be massive correlation between the DXY chart and the USDJPY chart. But right now we've got a very big ugly buy area here. We've got another small secretly embedded in that golden ratio, and then obviously our weekly confluence buy area. Knowing me, I definitely have a big pending order here. I most likely will put a pending order there, and I'm going to ignore this. And then 5 weeks from now, we're going to realize that it was the area that I ignored, that price used and never came back again. But I don't like this in terms of my risk to reward. The area of value is very big, and because of that, how much money am I risking of my own capital in comparison to how much money I'm going to make? Because the obvious place to get off is at the supply. The supply is not yet broken, ladies and gentlemen. This is the obvious place to get off. This yellow zone here, can't hold the trade past this yellow zone. This is a seller zone, and this is 1:2. It's not how I like to trade. So I would be more interested in this demand more, because this demand is the first demand that gives me a better risk to reward ratio, specifically 1:10. That's what Christmas is made out of. And obviously the risk to reward ratio of the buy zone all the way down there, which gives me almost a 1:11 type of situation. So that's what I'll be really interested in. In fact, I'm going to be so bold to remove this zone right now. Right, this zone, by the way, good for intraday trading. Those of you on the 1 hour chart who's got a daily heartbeat on the market, you can make money there. But remember, in our war rooms, these are swing setups. So this is what we're looking out for. All right. I really hope you know everything is going good and you're clear and we're together, right? So sorry guys, please note. Can I just quickly alert you guys watching part 1 that I'm doing part 2 so that there's no confusion. So I'm just going to quickly hop on the chat on part 1 for 10 seconds while you guys look at AUDNZD. I'm going to pop up AUDNZD on the screen for you. And then we are good to go. Right, so then I'm going to give it a governing perspective first. Oh, look at our analysis paying off well. I don't think I'm in this anymore. I don't know, but I don't think I'm in any AUDNZD trade. I've not seen that in my P&L in a while. But the analysis that I gave paying off well. So I'm just gonna quickly, let's do it together, because then it won't be weird. I won't feel like you guys are just watching and judging. Right. So in front of you now is part 1 that I recorded first, but it's already, you know, some people are already watching it. So I just want to quickly give a message. Sorry guys, please note. I had issues. So just part 1. Currently being recorded as you watch part 1. So please watch part 2. After this, you will notice and part 1 was short, it was less than an hour, right? Right, cool. And shake my hand. Right, ladies and gentlemen, back to part 2, right? So look at me, like doing all this stuff with you. Sorry, it's just don't forget to like, guys. Why don't you guys like the videos, man? Like the videos, It will help. It will help you, help me, help you. Right. So back to part 2. Right. So we've got AUDNZD, and I see we're called for a few buys, and those buys are actually working out now. It's been about 2 or so months. And I will check, but I don't have. I can't seem to remember seeing any money moving on AUDNZD, which generally means I'm not in the trade for whatever reason. Right, so we've got a big supply right above. All right, we've got a very big supply right above, and that particular supply is interesting. All right, so it's close, it's too close, you know. So this is probably why I was not that excited to take the trade. Just gave the correct analysis. I don't like taking trades that will be so stressful to handle, right? So there was a nice little imbalance area there. There's a risk area. Markets held on bouncing around that area, and finally, you know, for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, markets have now started, you know, climbing up the hill. I would like us to move on from this chart. There's nothing to do here. I'm not even excited to sell, because again, the setup with the descending triangle pattern is not really great. So AUDNZD is something to look out for later on. This 81% short was me explaining to you guys the sentiment of the market with retail traders. And I'll say that while retail traders are trying to shoot this thing down, let's buy. You guys can watch that video. I used my FX book to pull out all that data on what retail traders were doing. It'll actually be interesting to see if it's still 81% my FX book, but it's been a while. It's been a very long time since, you know, we made that trade call, right? So we'll have to quickly come to the community. The community, I think it's here. right? And we can just quickly see if they've changed their thoughts on this thing. But yeah, for now, short-term buy all the way to the supply, and then it's anyone's market after that. So that's why I would personally want to wait on a couple of things, right? So you go to community, then you go to community, then you go to sentiment. I've done this before in a previous one, about 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, 10 rooms ago, where I'll tell you guys I'm buying, even though they say 81% of people are short, right? I'm still buying, and you can see why I do that, just to kind of like show you the superiority of our analysis. But there's AUDNZD, and remember this is data made from real accounts only, right? So it's not like random data, but you can see there's definitely more sell pressure than buyers in that market there, right? And so a lot of people are selling a little bit too early, and because of that, they're going to be on the wrong side of the trade. The idea to sell is sound, but not now. All right, I just wanted to see how many, but unfortunately, weather has changed the side, and my internet is now, running a little bit slow. Right, so AUDNZD, there it is. Their sentiment has not changed much, right? It really has not changed much. A lot of sell side, right? So watch out for that. But for now, if you're in that buy that I gave you, good for you. Full disclosure, I genuinely don't think I'm in it. But I'm glad the analysis that I gave you is working out. Right, CAD Swiss Franc. Right, so also here I'm just gonna write no signal for me on AUDNZD, right? CAD Swiss Franc, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. The range in markets, but every once in a while we must come back to it. But if you notice, I generally avoid this chart. If something can range like this for so long, it is just generally not a good look, right? So markets broke out of the range and then broke up, and then now preparation got pattern, and now price wants to go down. Oil is cooled down, so CAD will cool down in strength as well. In the weekly time frame, we're seeing specific pattern, right? Markets did try to create another range here, broke out, right? So maybe just to really give it a clean look, right? A deep, clean look into a lot of things. We've got a bearish engulfing pattern there on the weekly time frame. On the governing time frame, we saw sell pressure. We saw a little bit of sell pressure as well. All right. So that's fine. All right. And then markets complicated 55 candles, and then markets are to the downside, right? So it's safe to say, there's a little bit of downward pressure. It's also safe to say that this area might not hold. Then the assumption is that markets might be trying to come all the way down here. So if you're interested in selling this market and my bias has not tainted you away, and maybe I should stop telling you guys things that I hate. In case of the things that you like, right? I don't want to discourage you from your assets. I've been trading for a very long time. I literally now know what I like and what I don't like, what I have patience for and what I don't have patience for. I'm going to use a Kiniashi because there's still a lot of noise on this chart here, right? So I'm going to tighten my areas of value right now. This is what it looks like now. That weekly supply tends to a daily supply. Looks like something like this. We can talk about a couple of break of structures over here, where markets kind of like are hovering at the close on Friday. And then we can talk about the possibility of a floor here, where markets have already been to quite deeply, right? And then this being, the beta target, if markets so decide to remove this area. Now, the problem with this whole thing is where are you going to enter, right? I can't see a safe place for you to get in, right? You should have entered clearly somewhere up here, which we didn't. Well, I don't remember. I don't even remember looking at this chart when the time was right? So we missed talking about this on sometime in June. So we've missed that bus. And this is a very weird cluster that lacks a lot of clarity, right? Like it's not clean, right? So even if you are right about where price is going, which is down, there isn't a lot of clarity as to how you're going to go about entering this trade, right? So your best bet is to just wait or leave this market alone, right? Because this could happen. This is a bearish engulfing pattern. And then maybe you could take a schematic sell there, all right? So look out for something like that. But this is also a very real potential where markets just break this demand, don't even bother to come back up, create a new original supply somewhere here, and then keep going down, right? So you're gonna have to be awake on this pair, you know, in the near future to see how you want to go about it, right? Pound AUD. Wow, cowboy move paid off. This I remember. Someone in the senior trader, yeah, so sad. I don't know why they lost 6,000 something, like a really big buy. They're really big buy, guys. So just so we're clear, so I can come back to this thing right now. An area of value is what it is until the rules that we have for these things are broken. So, for example, I call these areas cowboy areas because they are high risk, right? And that's cool because of glass effect, right? The reason why we were afraid of this thing was because we thought, well, look, man, it's been hit many times, therefore it's now weak, right? And that's the truth. But you don't get to decide that because there's glass effect, therefore buy through it. No, you still have to wait for the area of value to be taken up. Smart money makes that decision, not me and you. Right, so there was a crazy mistake here. Someone took a massive momentum buy here to the upside, thinking that they would ride the wave up. And this cowboy area held, and you know, it cost them quite a lot of money. But they're very like professional about it and you know, reflective. Right, these are the repeated lows that pound AUD keeps bringing price to. So right now, I mean, I sold once here. I'm not in the second loop. I definitely wouldn't even have the balls to come back again to this, you know, glass effect area, right? So right now I'm waiting. If price drops any lower down here, then I'm going to buy it, right? So I'm going to wait for price to drop lower for a big buy all the way up to this zone. Or if markets turn here, I'm going to wait for them to break this area of value and then sell at that supply. All right, so right now it is clear to me that pound AUD, I'm doing nothing, right? So I'm going to write NOS, no signal for me right now. Once again, wait for it to come back down, and then we will look for big buys. This is an actual real demand, and I do know in the senior room we've got a couple of pending orders in here already, right? But for now, honestly speaking, you know, that the high risk area cowboy zone, even on the governing time frame, looks like it's creating enough cluster power for a supply, right? This is potentially a PCP to the downside, right? I know I've got a lot of lines on my chart. Maybe I can look at the Fibonacci, right? So I'm saying here, downside, you know, this cluster speaks to sell pressure. There's going to be more sell pressure. But the problem is on the daily time frame we would like to enter, we don't really have the cleanest of all clean signals, right? Now, you could run risky bets, which could pay you, like how this paid us, right? And the risky bets are these. I just don't think I'm interested, right? So there's, yeah, right? You could run, because markets have arrived at a low that they generally like to play with, right? Somewhere in here is, you know, a very nice psychological low, especially for retail traders, right? They're going to trap them into some support and resistance bands here. They're going to get their indicators saying all sorts of things, and then they're just going to remove this level, right? This is not a real level. Now, you could be betting on price, you know, rocketing up to here and then maybe taking another sell. But I'm telling you that all these levels are now risky because this market is being very, very choppy. You see, according to Akinihashi, that's not even a good place to wait. Rather wait up here, and I don't even know what it's pointing to. Let's go back to normal candlesticks on the daily time frame, right? So another bearish engulfing pattern is embedded there, right? Listen, man, you know, each to their own, but this is quite a big, risky, wide area, all right? It's quite a big bet. I would allow markets to clean this range personally. I would allow markets to clean this range, and then see. So break out down or break to the upside and then see from there, right? But I know you guys are not as patient as me. You always want every day to make money every day, right? USDCAD on the governing time frame. What are you doing, right? So we get a supply, makes sense. DXY is weak, dollar is falling. DXY hit a supply, USDCAD hit a supply. USDJPY hit a supply. You guys get in the drift. Markets move in correlations. When you understand big assets, you understand a group of assets, you get multiple streams of income moving at the same time, right? For buyers, this was our take profit level. We took profit. Beautiful trade, closed. I'm going to remove all of that stuff right now. I never got into the sell. I took my profits and I moved on, right? So I never got into any type of sells. And that's because at the time, as low as I was aware that the dollar is approaching a supply, but the dollar was still very strong. So I didn't want to be stuck with the sell that the DXY is not really, pro. Right, on the weekly time frame, you can see here, guys, we've got a situation where the supply is holding strong. There's another weekly supply. It's just a cluster of selling, right? But this is the main, supply, this whole zone here. All right, and I'm sure these white lines will mean something on the daily time frame, but I'm just trying to give you a clean indication, right, of the bearish engulfing pattern that's controlling price. You've got a fresh touch and you've got a retest, right? So right now, no longs on USDCAD. I repeat, no longs on USDCAD. And if you look at the COT report, that's another thing I said I don't have time to do today, but I can give you a summary of some of these assets because I've looked at the COT report quite briefly. As I was looking at a lot of reports last week, right? But right now, USDCAD shorts are aggressive, all right? So that's literally my summary from COT data, right? Right now, USDCAD shorts are very aggressive. At some point last week, oil was below $100 per barrel, believe it or not. Right, so I would be looking for sales, short-term sales here if you want to make some money, right? If you're already not in it, right? But you can see, again, because we're doing this forum now, we didn't have one last week, right? We really are approaching these markets at a terrible time, right? So there's some type of retail traders flow here. Not a good place to be in life, not a good place to buy from, not a good place to do nothing from. This would indicate a broken demand, right? But this would also indicate a bandage, right? A reinforcing of a demand level. This is not a bearish engulfing pattern, so I have no interest in saying price is going to go here then sell, and that's it. This is why when you lose money, you lose little and you don't lose as frequent because you have all these rules. I have all these rules in place that say the temptation is great. The temptation to take this trade is great, but the logic and the rules that I have are telling me, but why? What are you rushing for? So, for me, like I said, I'm gonna, take a safer route, so to speak, on this particular trade. The one thing that's interesting is the fact that I see we've got our notes high risk buy, fib confirmation, but there are no order blocks on the 2-hour H4 and daily time frame. So I want to quickly go to the daily time frame and redraw a Fibonacci, right? And this could be a classic place to do some intraday trade, right? If you think markets are going to retest this daily, governance structure, and you see potential longs, then be my guest. Personally, for me, like I say, I'm gonna go with the big picture. Big picture is dollar is dropping a little bit right now, so USDCAD we expect to be weak for a little bit longer. Right, so here's a Fibonacci area here, and the golden ratio starts by this yellow line, and somewhere inside the golden ratio, right towards the end of that 0.78 number is probably an H1 order block, right? It just sounds a little bit risky. I'm gonna wait all the way down there for a good entry on USDCAD. I'm not gonna do anything else, not here to force trades, right? So USDCAD, I'm just gonna maintain that low buy down there. I see nothing convincing of a supply in this cluster, right? There are probably bigger supplies there. Remember, I just told you that the COT report is saying, the shorts are kind of being aggressive for now. We'll have to see what happens next week. All right, I'm just trying to see what's going on here. There was a supply there, it was mitigated. There was another supply there, mitigated. Then there was potentially whatever is going on in this little cluster, which once upon a time was mitigated here, and this went way above. So if I was just to quickly draw horizontal, I just want to see what this point here was touching. So touching, breaking, and that might give us an indication of how high up price needs to go, or if price is done. What am I doing? Sorry, I'm looking for the normal horizontal line. Right. I don't know. See, price made a move for this area here, right? Maybe if we go a Kinihashi, but for the most part, guys, I feel like I'm forcing a trade. Whenever I feel like I'm forcing a trade, that's generally where bad decisions are made, right? So with a doji candle here, which would have been a good way to draw this area of value. So markets did tag the higher supply there according to a Kinihashi piece. And for now, I'm going to wait for this whole pattern to fall. All right, I'm going to wait for the down drop to happen without me. I'm not going to try doing anything at these levels. I'm going to ignore this level. All right, you know, it could work out. You know, there is a Fibonacci area in there, but I would much far rather wait for that to come to fruition. And I guess only time will tell. Right, so next trade after USDCAD is AUDCAD. Right, markets are finally arrived at something that significantly looks like a governing time frame. All right, significantly looks like the part, but we shall see. Let's switch candlesticks real quick. Right, then we can get cleaner areas of value. Cleaner areas of value. Right, so we've got a governing, demand here that's been tapped. Right, that's really looking quite nice. Right, AUD strengthening against the CAD weak because oil is falling. You know, basic themes that I just keep reminding us about here. Right, so now let's do a quick MTA read. This is a bullish engulfing pattern. This is that COVID level, March 2020. We've seen what this level means to markets this year. It means nothing. Euro USD took it out. Pound USD dealing with it right now, right? So be careful. It's not AUD USD, it's AUDCAD, but just be careful. Markets don't seem to be enjoying this propped up recovery here and might want to fill. Right above this area is obviously a very fresh. Let's clean up this chart a little bit and do some chart OCD, some old levels that we no longer need, right? And then we can do something like this. Right, so you can see there we've got a new, governing supply very close by, which makes the tennis court, right, the distance between supply and demand, but price can move a whole lot shorter, right? And that's indicative of a couple of things. Number one, if the sell pressure is piling on from there to there to there, right, you want a supply close by to maintain that continuous downturn, right? So we shall see if that's going to be the case. Right now, we've got a green month. Right, like markets did something very weird, right? Remember, crazy inflation numbers, but still let's go green because of the hope that inflation is peaked. I spoke about this in my part one. I hope you have watched part one of War Room 73, both dropping on the same day. Right, so you can see along the way, demands were removed. One would argue for a daily supply there, but I'm not that excited about it, honestly. It's there, but I'm not excited about it at all. So what I'm going to do, all right, so I see we had a short-term buy there, 1-3, perfect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a red boundary. So it's not necessarily a cowboy area, high risk area, but it's really a supply that I'm not that excited about. There's a big bullish engulfing pattern right outside. Remember that arrow effect, the closest thing to the arrow always gets torn apart. We want to see distribution in price first. And markets are already just outside that area of competition. That's number one. Number two, we do have a strong weekly supply just above. And inside that weekly supply, I would far much more feel, at peace, trading around that area there than anywhere else in this chart right now. I would feel so much better at taking a daily supply inside a weekly supply. The usual module one basic setup that even if they fail, at least we're in a better place to understand why than taking a supply very close to demand. We can see here on our left with a bearish engulfing pattern. Be careful about that. Be careful about this. Why? Because this really tells you how far liquidity could go, right? You see that? But this supply here is slightly higher than this supply. So that means your stop loss has to be outside this white line, right? It has to be slightly above, because if price drives into this area like that, right, It's got every right to move up until it drops before hitting the swipe line. So if your stop loss is here too tight, you will get yourself into some serious trouble. So please, please, please be mindful of that. Please be mindful of that, right? There's a high risk of some liquidity rates on this end here. But yeah, this is, you know, for those of you with an itch to scratch. Also, the supply is very close to that demand area that price hits. So this is really for those of you who just need to always be in a trade, not very advisable. I would wait somewhere up there. Okay, AUDCAD done. CADJPY, ladies and gentlemen. Now I thought I was being smart doing part one, which was just going to be just the war room earlier today, thinking I'd be at the dinner table with my family. I've gotten so used to eating with them, but life had its own plans. You wouldn't believe this is part three or part two, but I'm gonna put both part twos together. We had a weird power failure for like 10 minutes, which obviously interrupted the feed. Right, supply broken. We spoke about this a long time ago, right? Supply broken on CADJPY. We spoke about this a long time ago. We marked where the supply was broken. CADJPY, what does this mean? Monetary policy divergence. As JPY gets weaker, anything for it, this case CAD will be stronger, right? Even if CAD is going through whatever it's going through because of oil, JPY is going to be weak until October. So we expect to see parabolic structure. We expect to see, you know, price moving up and up, right? This is the stuff that we teach in the course. I remember war rooms are really not a good teaching time or teaching space because of time. But if you want to learn how we see things, please feel free to take our course. The link is in the description. Looking forward to having you. Right, so this is the real main target up here. We can see at the very beginning of the next supply phase, this supply here is broken. I keep them in just because we are doing something specific in the office right now. We're building a 365 bot, and so we want to program these broken supplies and what they mean, blah blah blah. But for all intents and purposes, as a trader, you know there's nothing you can do at this table. As long as the supply is broken, even if you see price coming down, you know it's not going to last for long because there is no sell side pressure in that area anymore. On the weekly time frame, you can see here I've got an H4 demand, which is my 50% on the daily. I've got an H4 demand within the golden ratio. That means I've already taken the time to draw a fib from this area to probably somewhere there. And that's all I'm waiting for on this chart, right? So there's really not much to do. Renewed analysis, right? So I'm not in these cells because, you know, who knew how far price would come in. Price came into this H4 demand. Why do I feel like I forgot to set a pending order? This was a clean trade, right? This is that area. Right? Price came in, did its job, went all the way up, right? So for me, this H4 demand area has really worked out. Geez, and we missed it. Right, so I would definitely be looking at, you know, maybe taking a trade, you know, definitely somewhere down here on the daily demand buy. If we are lucky for price to come all the way down there, right? It's quite a big ask for price, but, you know, give it another week and a half or so, and markets might actually make it all the way down there. That's a 600 pips decline. If your conviction is price is going down there, for intraday setups, you can find, you know, good trades, right? But don't forget, there are a couple of demands here. There's one there that I'm not looking forward to taking, and then there's one that worked out here, right? There's an H4 demand here within the golden ratio, right? So somewhere in here, I guess there's an order block, and it seems to be in line, right? That's nice and fresh, right? So I will have a small, well, if I go 5% on this area, I'll go 2.5% here. I will have some type of, you know, order block value there. Some type of buy order there just to see what happens. You can see here, you know, markets have already nicked this area of value, and so if they're to go lower, it will make sense. And so H4 demand in line with the golden ratio is great, but this would be something to closely monitor to know when to take profits. So get your 1:3, get your 1:3, and most likely, you know, lock profits. You know, anything is possible. And the reason why I'm saying that is, in the event markets want to come back for this daily demand down here, this H4 demand will ultimately now be in the way. So if you don't take profits, there's a nice 1:10, right? You see that literally prices created a supply on Friday, creating a very nice imbalance for that supply, right? For an intraday trader, if you're very good with your smart money concepts, this could be a nice sell setup. The sell going down and you buy it back up, all right? But I'm saying on the buy back up, be very careful. Be very, very careful to take profits on time, because if markets want to ultimately use the daily demand below you, they will. But that means all your gains on this H4 buy here, you know, might be in trouble, right? So do look out for that. Do look out for that on CADJPY. But yeah, it's faring quite well. Next, we've got Pound CAD. We're almost done, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for your patience and the sequence of this forum. It's not all the time we have part 1, part 2, but you know, things happen. Right, so this was a failed trade, Pound CAD. And I want to understand why. Yes, I had a buy limit. This was part of War Room 72, the one I guys told you about. It was the first war room. I lost my max lost amount. My max loss per cluster is $1,250 US, but I actually did about 1.8 in losses on this one cluster, fundamentally because a lot of the indices, it was filled with a lot of indices, Russell, Nike, NASDAQ, S500, US 30, etc., etc., and those cost me quite a bit of money, right? For now, I just care about the buy and no sell, right? So, and you'll see in War Room 72, when we're looking at, I'm just trying to check my notes here, sorry, Pound CAD, yeah, I was looking to buy. So I was actually very much focused on the buy limit at this level, and I still got stopped out, right? So let's figure out why. Right, so the demand is definitely inside a governing area of value. It's got a red boundary. The red boundary, remember I just did a red boundary area. It does mean take special care. There's a little bit of risk, or rather accept the risk, right? You might be wrong. Clearly we were wrong here. Why did I put a red boundary there? Because any area of value that goes through this much abuse is not a good area of value, technically speaking. And then what happened was price then created a new demand somewhere up here. I know I've gone through this with you guys in the previous forum, but just to remind you, right? And we put an X because the same thing has happened on this new demand. We've had multiple touches, therefore we call it a glass effect. Therefore, it is not surprising that the next time price comes there, it goes through. Retail trading strategy, things like support and resistance preach the opposite. They say that the more times price comes to an area, the stronger that area. That's absolutely crap, right? It's absolute lies, because every area of value is a significant amount of money to sustain that area of value. If you're going to sustain the area of value with a significant amount of money in that particular area of value, you then have some type of situation where price can move up or down, right? So all these buy orders here are depleted, right? So I guess I thought I was smart enough to choose a lower demand inside the governing time frame, despite the red boundary. But even then, price did, you know, move to prove us wrong. So let's quickly do an autopsy on this area, right? So somewhere here, we tried to buy price back up, and I clearly can tell it definitely came from the daily time frame. So I want to make sure there is no weekly confluence. Okay, there's a lot of noise going on. It wouldn't even matter, right? But on the daily time frame, I'm pretty sure I was eyeing something. And let's see what that was. Right, so there we go. So I was eyeing this polishing off pattern. Barely gave enough profits, and then this was the end of it, right? See this market's breaking that area, that glass effect, multiple touches, not, and so this cost, you know, a little bit of money, right? And the idea was I wanted to write it back up there to sell, right? But unfortunately, I would say that trade idea is dead right now. And the sell is technically fine. The distance is slightly better right now, but you're going to have to deal with all these wannabe, you know, areas. There's that one, there's this one that's currently engaged right now, and it might fail. Right, so long term, it looks like there's still a lot of sell pressure on this chart, right? Pound, you know, and pound is weaker right now. So yeah, so you know, give or take, wait here, but you might wait forever. But there's nothing I want to do in these areas. I never sell inside a demand, despite how weak the demand is, or rather wait for the demand to get broken. All right, so pound CAD, for me personally, ladies and gentlemen, it's no signal. I recently lost to it, so it's definitely not even the time for me to be going back to this chart right now, right? Until I get the type of clarity I want. The clarity I would want is markets to rally out of this area and potentially come up here and even better there. Then I can sell. And in terms of buys, I'm going to stay away from that right now, even though we're uniquely inside the big demand. Right. Third, towards the end, is AUD Swiss Franc. These are charts I haven't looked at in a very long time. AUD Swiss Franc, also massive. I really want us to go through all the stuff we spoke about in Forum 72 that did not work out. Right, we really, it's important. You can't run away from losses as a trader, so you have to sit through the autopsy, right? So I also wanted to buy some stuff here, and now I want to review the tape with you. I've reviewed this tape like 4 times. Forum 72 gave me such a headache, but I never got to film that process because I'll do it at night or when the kids are sleeping and I'm not feeling my best. I was always in a gown and I was sick anyways. But we have to kind of like see exactly what happened. So let's start off with the structure, right? The governing structure still pointing to the downside, although there was a little bit of a slight break. But you know, for all intents and purposes, right? This hasn't been the type of break, you know, that markets can truly be proud of, right? Markets haven't really broken and rallied. They've broken and come back to the same level and created an actual annoying range in that area, right? So this is the range that we want to deal with right now on AUD Swiss Franc, right? So we correctly identified the supply, we correctly identified, you know, markets were dropping for a while and wanted to catch, you know, the up and up, right? And the up and up, you know, this is a long time ago. Oh, this is analysis from, yeah, I'm right. This is very, okay, this is great. Right, so as price was leaving the supply, right, I must have seen something on the daily time frame. There we go. So I circled it here. So for my first buy, I truly believe that markets were going to catch a break here. It had already given us a bounce for a fresh touch in this area. All right, and I don't know why. I don't know why this was a good idea. This was a terrible idea. I can finally remove this stuff. This was such a terrible idea. This was a bad trade. The markets didn't screw me over. The broker didn't screw me over. This was just a dumb trade. You know, this was absolutely a dumb trade. Long story short, I stood in the way of a very sharp sell trend that was going to make contact with the demand. All buys are supposed to be down here. And now markets have left, right, the buy zone. I'm not in any of these buys and potentially playing around. Now, don't forget the big structure we saw on the governing time frame, right? That it's really like a downward structure that tried to break out, but even within the breakout, markets came back in, right? So we can see on Friday, we had a confirmation of potentially what looks like more selling pressure for the next week or two, right? So another daily supply was created just underneath another daily supply. And the temptation to do this, I understand it, right, is there, the temptation, but I won't because I did something stupid on this chart. So I'm just gonna wait and see and breathe, you know, let price play around, right? And then hopefully see if this is a good place. I'm not gonna put a rectangle yet. I wanna first see it for myself that, you know, how far would price go? Because this area of value is big, right? Price has to destroy this green area of value. If not destroy, price has to really weaken so that when we come back here, we're going down, right? If this is the nature of AUD Swiss Franc, and AUD Swiss Franc wants to come back down and test all these other lower demands there. There's a lower demand there. It's a cluster of buying there, right? So if its move is to come down, I really want to first see how it's going to deal with me there, right? And I'm hoping you guys can learn. But my point is, if you get burnt by an asset, you have to first of all accept that. Number one. Number two, come back and view the tape. If you don't know your mistake, you're going to repeat it, right? And then write it down. You're going to write this stuff down. Absolutely have to write this stuff down. You need to have a sequence. Like, okay, fine, don't do this dumb stuff again, Roy. That's how you lost 100. AUD Swiss Franc. I lost $83 there, $83.49. That's how big my stop loss value was, right? And this helps. The stuff helps, right? So for me, again, not in a rush to trade this. I'm gonna write NOS right now. It's just my study. I have to study this thing. It beats me. I have to learn from it, right? So pound CAD, AUD Swiss Franc, same WhatsApp group, right? Pound NZD is the second last asset I thought we should look at today. All right, the supplies are holding. This I know I'm in it right now, but we need to talk about managing our positions for this pair. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to open pound NZD on a different broker for 2 seconds, just so that we don't have to undo most of our analysis. You can see there with the true sale and all that kind of stuff. So I really want to reanalyze the stuff with you guys, all right, on a clean chart. So let's remove all these drawings here. Right, markets, when they get like this, can get very difficult to read, right? This cluster, the range trading. So I would very much encourage you to please keep it as simple and as clean as possible. Keep it simple, as clean as possible. Start off with your immediate supplies, right? The stuff I taught you guys in module 1, those who've done my course. So really, what you wanna make sure you've got all your 4 to 5 main supply and demands, right, clearly marked out on the chart, but focusing on immediate, right? If you can train your eye to see all the other supplies, then only draw out the immediate, you're in a better place. And then identifying the most, significant type of demand areas was the next job of the chart. Why? You will realize quickly that this thing is ranging. It's playing with our emotions, right? It's just ranging. It's a ranging market. It's an annoyingly ranging market, right? All the way from 2011 October to 2012 October, 2013 October, right? And then went up and then came back down to the range 2016, went a little bit lower, right? It's a ranging market. 2020, the doji candles at the top, not at the bottom. So when there was a financial crisis, this is a chart that fell during the recovery of that crisis, right? And now we've got this whole situation. We know that this range is not true, right? Markets can go below and above, right? Below and above. It's something to keep note of, right? But you only see this stuff after you've drawn your proper, immediate areas of value, right? The other thing that I found interesting with our sell, that's why I think it's time to manage this trade, is that to me it feels like June is creating a bearish engulfing pattern. So while all other assets that we looked at above, if we go back, pound JPY, this, the month of June is green, right? Here we've got a bearish engulfing pattern, which is why this trade is doing wonders for us. But we must be careful, all right? When I looked at it yesterday, Saturday, in preparation for the war, I got a feeling that we have to be careful to not lose the ball when it comes to the profits. If you're already in it, right, get a clean target. And for me, I'm going back to my chart now where we're in. For me, I don't see myself holding this trade past these areas, right? So these areas down here are definitely a good place to get on. But what I did pick up yesterday was the fact that on the daily time frame, we potentially might have arrived. It might be a good time to close on Monday. And that's honestly what I'm going to be doing for pound NZD. So I thought I'd bring this up right now because I have no patience for markets to drive me back to the supply levels, right? Markets did arrive at this daily demand. Yes, I saw fresh touch retest. I was hoping to see some weakness and we'll go through it, but we're not going through it, right? On Friday, markets acknowledged the area of value and gave us, what looks like a rejection. Now, if on Monday we get, a failed wick, so a big red candle to the downside, that would be great, all right? But for the most part, either break even or just close this trade, right? It's really not a trade with babysitting anymore, right? Just take the one is, it's almost a 1:3, just 2 comma something, below. And the fact that on Friday with this big bounce, we've already lost quite a bit of those profits. So I'm telling you now, I am taking profits on pound NZD. And then I'm going to step out of it for now because of the range, right? So there's no real trade signal coming in there. Then the last asset we want to look at, remember I did say in my part one, we're going to look at indices, NASDAQ 100, all those kind of things after FOMC on Wednesday, because that's where the money is, right? We need to first understand what's going on. Right, AUDJPY, monetary policy divergence, JPY weak, anything on the other side is strong, we're going up to the heavens. and those supplies have been neatly pointed out there for us, right? So there's still a little bit of room for those of you who want to catch the trade. I'm not in this trade. I could never find a good enough entry point for a swing setup there. And it looks like out of all the time we've taken away looking at this asset, even coming back to it, we are still at a difficult crossover where it is not yet safe to enter, right? So what would be interesting to take risks on is an area like that. I could take a risk there. I could take a risk there, right? But this is a very high risk. I'd be more interested in stuff all the way down there. And bearing in mind, like this is an interesting value-based demand, but the real value is somewhere down there. So just note that, you know, you could be right in the going up part, but you could be stopped out in the process, right? So this is one of those charts that you need to scale down. And maybe this is the last chart of the night anyways. Might as well do that stuff together. Right, so we've got two interesting places to kind of like conduct, ourselves here, which is, and remember, AUDJPY is a big money maker last year for this beautiful sell pattern that we bought last year. This was just absolutely amazing. This is October last, it was the end of the year. Yep, it was good. So since then, markets have clearly like really outdone themselves and rivalled all the way to the top. We've got this weird cluster here, right? And I say weird because it is not a bullish engulfing pattern. It does not just, negate the fact that it also failed to give us the type of seamless imbalance that we like to see, right? In fact, you get a bearish engulfing pattern, you get a cluster, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not that excited about having such a big area of value. I would much rather be stopped out somewhere here, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and keep it moving. Right, and then catch price, right? So this is for the brave-hearted, right? That'll be the next immediate demand, but just be very careful. Nothing wrong with it except for the fact that it's just way too close to the action, right? But this could be a very good place to take some type of risk, all right, and then really hope to ride that way, right? So that's really what I'm hoping for, even though this is still a real possibility, right? So, if you go with the 3 position thing that I once taught you guys, opening 3 positions that are risk managed properly, correct lot sizing in those 3 positions, then this is where you want to have your first take profit, right? Your 1.25, which would cover the cost of the entire trade, and then you want to break even one of your entries to see if your entries will run this far. So that's how I would play this. Make sure that I get money in case this is the stop place and it's done. Make sure that the last trade that I'm running is a break-even point, and I run it all the way up there if markets allow. And if markets don't allow, then I would take a nice risk here as well, right? So, and this is how AUDJPY has been moving. By the way, see these lines I'm drawing, these constant flags, where we've taken similar trades before in the war, where there's a break of market structure and markets rally from that point of view. And this is why we stopped setting here last year, right? And we realized, we hit a demand and this downward trend line is now broken. And historically, you can see this is literally how I draw on this chart, because that's how it moves. So the likelihood of this working out is fairly high, right? But if it doesn't work out, I'll be looking down here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been great. I apologize for the 2 parts of the war room. I am looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday, live on the 365 channel. Please don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm looking forward to seeing you in my classroom as I go through a deep lecture series with you on supply and demand. So do check out the links in the description. But until then, I hope you're doing well. I hope you are, great. Please look out for a lot of stuff on the channel. We need to catch up with a lot of stuff and do a lot of videos. And I'm working tirelessly behind the scenes to get that process going. 365, shake my hand. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a good evening. Blessed week, right? And I'll see you on Wednesday. Peace.